Imagine earning $300,000 a year and still feeling like you are one flat tire away from financial ruin. Statistically, that income puts you in the top 5% of earners in the United States. You have, theoretically, won the game. But as you pull your luxury SUV into the driveway of your $1.2 million suburban home, you feel a tightening in your chest. You are not thinking about your portfolio. You are thinking about the property tax bill that just hit your inbox, and the fact that your checking account is hovering near zero, despite the high-octane direct deposit that landed last Friday. This is the reality for a massive cohort of high earners I call the Henrys. High earners, not rich yet. They are caught in a very specific, very expensive trap designed to look like success while quietly hollowing out their long-term security. Today, we are going to talk about why earning $300,000 a year can actually be the most dangerous financial position you will ever inhabit. We are going to look at why faux wealth is mathematically the most expensive way to live, and how the pursuit of looking rich is the very thing preventing you from actually being rich. Before we dive into the math that will likely change how you view your neighbor's new Porsche, I want to invite you to do something that offers the best ROI on your time today. Hit that subscribe button. Most people spend 40 hours a week earning money, but less than 40 minutes a month actually managing the psychology of it. By joining this community, you are committing to the latter. We look at the cold, hard reality of the numbers so you can stop running on the treadmill and start building a fortress. If you want to move from being an income statement success to a balance sheet legend, you are in the right place. Now, let us look at the psychological trigger that starts this whole mess, something economists call the Diderot Effect. There is a common belief that once you cross the multiple six-figure threshold, the struggle ends. We tell ourselves that at $300,000, we will finally have enough to save aggressively, travel well, and never worry about the price of a grocery haul again. But $300,000 is a unique number because it acts as a gateway into a specific socioeconomic tier. It is the price of admission to the good zip code. The problem is that when you move into that zip code, the goalposts don't just move. They are strapped to a rocket and launched into the stratosphere. You go from being the big fish in a middle-class pond to the smallest fish in an ocean of high-end consumption. This shift triggers a phenomenon called relative deprivation. Suddenly, the Honda Pilot you loved 3 years ago feels like a tractor because 4 of your neighbours are charging their Teslas or parking Range Rovers. Your brain doesn't see your $300,000 income as high. It sees it as the baseline for survival in this new environment. This isn't a failure of character, it is a failure of perspective. We fall into the trap of thinking our lifestyle should match our income. But as I often say, your income is what you earn, but your wealth is what you keep. The Suburb Trap is designed to ensure you keep as little as possible. The psychological engine behind this is the Diderot Effect. Named after a French philosopher who bought a fancy robe and then felt compelled to replace his entire study to match its elegance, it is the cornerstone of suburban overspending. It starts with the house. You buy the $1.2 million home because the bank told you that you could afford it based on your $300,000 income. But that house is the fancy robe. Once you move in, you realise your old sofa looks pathetic in a 20-foot high great room. So you finance $20,000 of furniture. Then you notice the lawn. You cannot be the guy with the overgrown weeds in a neighbourhood where every blade of grass is professionally manicured. So you hire a landscaping crew for $500 a month. This is not a one-time purchase, it is a cascade. Every new possession creates a social obligation to buy another possession to maintain the aesthetic harmony. I've seen families add $3,000 a month in recurring costs, simply because they wanted their interior design to match the prestige of their address. They are not buying comfort, They are buying a stage set. The math is brutal because these are not variable costs you can turn off. You cannot decide to stop watering the grass or leave the great room empty without feeling like a failure. You have traded your flexibility for a set of expensive social requirements. The psychological twist is that none of this actually makes you happier. This is the hedonic treadmill in its purest form. As your income rises, your expectations and desires rise in lockstep. At 100,000, you wanted the house. At 300,000, you have the house, but now you want the pool, the club membership, and the European vacation that your neighbours just posted about on Instagram. Research shows that the joy of a new purchase evaporates within weeks, but the debt or the recurring cost associated with it lasts for years. The 300k earner is particularly vulnerable because they feel rich enough to indulge, but aren't wealthy enough to be immune to the consequences. If you think this is just about being flashy, you are wrong. It is actually deeper than that. It is about the fear of being excluded. In these affluent bubbles, consumption is the language of belonging. If you don't play the game, you aren't just saving money, you are opting out of the social fabric of your community. This is why families who know better still find themselves signing leases for cars they don't need. They aren't trying to impress strangers, they are trying to stay relevant to their friends. But here is the thing. Your friends are likely just as stressed as you are, looking at your driveway and wondering how you afford it while they struggle to pay their own bills. So how do you stop the spiral? The solution is a fundamental rewiring of what you consider a flex. In the Suburb Trap, a flex is showing people how much money you can spend. In a wealth-building mindset, the truest flex is showing yourself how much money you can command. You have to learn to be comfortable looking average. This means being the person with the 10-year-old Toyota in a sea of leased BMWs. It means realizing that your house is a place to live, not a museum for your neighbours to admire. The protocol is simple but difficult. You must decouple your self-worth from your net worth, and specifically from your visible consumption. I've run the numbers on this for years, and the people who actually reach the $10 million mark aren't the ones with the most expensive landscaping. They are the ones who decided that financial peace of mind was more fashionable than a new kitchen remodel. When you stop viewing your life as a performance, you instantly reclaim your largest asset, your income. But we cannot just talk about mindset. We have to look at the structural leaks in the boat. And the biggest leak of all is the architecture of the suburban fixed cost. Wait, it gets worse. If you think the mortgage is the biggest hurdle, you are missing the phantom leak that actually destroys high-earning households. Most people focus on the big numbers, like the purchase price of the home, but the real wealth killer is the friction of daily life in an affluent zip code. We are about to look at the big three fixed costs that turn a $300,000 income into a paycheck-to-paycheck nightmare. If you don't control these three things, it doesn't matter if you get a raise to $500,000, you will still feel broke. In fact, making more money might actually make your situation more precarious. Let's break down the architecture of the trap, starting with the housing illusion and why your home is likely a massive liability disguised as an investment. The traditional rule of thumb says you can afford a home that is 3 to 4 times your gross income. For a $300,000 earner, a $1.1 or $1.2 million house seems perfectly reasonable on paper. But this is where the housing illusion begins. In the suburban trap, the mortgage principal and interest are just the tip of the iceberg. You are not just buying a house, you are buying a tax liability and a maintenance nightmare. In high-tax states like New Jersey, Illinois, or Texas, the property taxes on that home can easily hit $30,000 a year. That is $2,500 a month that provides zero equity and zero utility. It is just the rent you pay the government to live on your own land. Then you have the rule of 1%. A well-maintained home costs about 1% of its value annually just to keep it from falling apart. On a $1 million home, that is $10,000 a year for roofs, HVACs, and plumbing. Add in the HOA fees to maintain the communal pool you never use, and the astronomical utility bills to heat and cool 4,000 square feet, and your housing cost isn't just the mortgage. It is an $8,000 to $10,000 monthly obligation. When 40% of your take-home pay is locked into a structure that depreciates in utility every day, you have lost your financial agility. You are now house rich and cash poor, and that is a very dangerous place to be when the economy shifts. If housing is the anchor, the auto trap is the leak in the boat. In the affluent suburbs, cars are the ultimate visible status symbol. Because these neighborhoods are car dependent, you are seen in your vehicle every single day. At school drop-offs, at the grocery store, at the office. The pressure to drive something that matches your $300,000 income is immense. The vehicles of choice, luxury SUVs and high-end electrics, frequently cost $80,000 to $100,000. Most families in this bracket end up with two of them. Whether you finance them at $1,200 a month each, or lease them to ensure you always have a new model, you are likely sinking $2,500 a month into assets that are losing value every time you turn the key. A $90,000 luxury SUV loses nearly half its value in the first few years. You are essentially paying a massive premium to absorb the steepest part of a depreciation curve, and then you do it all over again 3 years later. When you add in the insurance and maintenance for two high-end German or American SUVs, you are looking at a $3,000 monthly burn rate. Over a decade, that is $360,000 spent on the privilege of looking successful while sitting in traffic. That is money that could have been a college fund or a massive head start on retirement. Instead, it is just metal and leather sitting in your driveway. I know these numbers are heavy. It is one thing to hear them, but it is another thing to see them reflected in your own life. This is exactly why I built the official Tom Talks Money digital tools. If you are tired of wondering where your $300,000 went, you need the ultimate personal finance dashboard and the debt payoff tracker. These aren't just spreadsheets, they are the exact mathematical systems I use to track my own wealth and identify the leaks we are talking about today. You cannot fix what you cannot measure. If you want to see the cold, hard reality of your fixed costs and start planning your escape from the suburb trap, click the link in the description. It is the best investment you can make to stop the bleeding and start building. These tools will help you visualize your path to becoming balance sheet affluent rather than just looking the part. Now, let's get back to the most emotionally charged part of the trap, the parenting arms race. This is where the suburb trap gets its claws into your heart. High-earning parents often equate spending money on their children with being good parents. Even if you moved to a specific suburb specifically for the high-quality public schools your property taxes are already funding, the social pressure often pushes families toward private education. At $30,000 per year per child, 2 kids in private school means $60,000 of after-tax income is gone. To earn $60,000 in after-tax money, a $300,000 earner has to generate nearly $90,000 in gross income just to cover tuition. But it doesn't stop at school. It's the elite travel sports. It's the $3,000 club soccer fees, the hotels for weekend tournaments, and the private coaching for a 10-year-old who might not even play in high school. Parents are driven by the statistically improbable dream of an Ivy League athletic scholarship, but the math rarely makes sense. You are spending $100,000 over a decade to potentially save $50,000 on tuition later. The real cost isn't just the money, it is the time and the forced participation in a culture of constant competition. You aren't just keeping up with the Joneses, you're making sure your kids keep up with the Joneses' kids. This creates a cycle where the children grow up believing this level of consumption is normal, setting them up to fall into the same trap as soon as they start their own careers. It is how the suburb trap becomes a multi-generational cycle of high-income poverty. To break this cycle, you have to perform what I call an audit of necessity. You have to look at every recurring suburban expense and ask, is this for my family's well-being, or is this for the neighborhood's approval? If you are paying for private school while living in a top-tier public district, you are paying for the same product twice. If you are paying for a landscaping crew because you are too busy, but you spend 5 hours a weekend scrolling social media, you are trading your wealth for a convenience you don't actually need. The protocol here is to aggressively downsize the big three. Sell the car with the $1,200 payment and buy a reliable 5-year-old SUV in cash. It will do the exact same job. Reevaluate the private school. If the public school is 95% as good, that 5% difference is costing you millions in lost compounding over 30 years. True parenting isn't about providing the most expensive lifestyle. It is about providing the most secure future. A parent with a massive brokerage account and a modest house provides more long-term security for a child than a parent with a flashy lifestyle and zero savings. It is time to stop being an indentured servant to your own neighborhood and start being the architect of your own freedom. Most people stop here. They think, okay, I'll cut back a bit. But they miss the true gravity of the situation. They don't understand the opportunity cost. If you think that $3,000 a month car and house bloat is just $3,000, you are wrong. It is actually millions. We are about to look at the cold, hard math of what that suburban lifestyle is actually costing your future self. I am going to show you the difference between the person who drives the Mercedes today and the person who could buy the entire Mercedes dealership in 20 years. This is where we look at the eighth wonder of the world, compounding interest, and how the Suburb Trap is designed to keep you from ever using it. If you have been feeling like you are working harder but getting nowhere, this next section is exactly why. Let us run the numbers for a family earning $300,000. After federal taxes, state taxes, and FICA, your take-home pay is roughly $160,000. That is $13,300 a month. Now, let's look at the Suburb Trap budget. Mortgage, property taxes and insurance on that $1 million home? $7,000. 2 luxury car payments and insurance? $2,500. Private school or high-end childcare for 2 kids? $3,500. We haven't even bought a gallon of milk, paid for the heat, or put a single dollar into a 401k, and we have already spent $13,000. This family is living on a knife's edge. They are mathematically broke. To survive, they do the one thing that guarantees they will never be wealthy. They stop saving. They contribute only the bare minimum to their retirement accounts to get the employer match. Or worse, they stop altogether. They use credit cards to cover the variable expenses like vacations and dining out, hoping the annual bonus will wipe the slate clean. But the bonus is never enough, because by the time it hits, the property tax bill is due again, or the HVAC system needs to be replaced. This is the definition of a Henry. They have a high income, but they have zero margin of safety. If one spouse loses their job, the entire house of cards collapses within 60 days. They are not rich. They are just high-level consumers who are one bad Tuesday away from a total financial meltdown. This is the stress that keeps you awake at night, regardless of how nice your curtains are. Now, let's look at the opportunity cost, the cost of what you could have done with that money. Let's say this family decides to break the trap. They sell the luxury SUVs and buy 2 reliable, paid-off cars. That alone frees up $2,000 a month. If they take that $2,000 and invest it into a low-cost S&P 500 index fund, assuming a historical average return of 8%, look at what happens. In 10 years, they have $365,000. In 20 years, they have $1.2 million. In 30 years, they have nearly $3 million. By choosing to drive a brand new luxury SUV today, they are literally choosing to give up $3 million in generational wealth. That is the price of the lease. The same math applies to the house. If they bought a house that was $300,000 cheaper, the savings in mortgage, interest, and taxes could easily fund their children's entire college education and allow them to retire a decade earlier. Faux wealth is the most expensive way to live because it robs you of your most valuable asset, time. Every luxury purchase you make that you cannot actually afford is a month or a year added to your mandatory working life. You are trading your freedom for a set of keys and a prestige address. When you see it in these terms, the deal of the Suburb Trap looks like a scam. If you are the kind of person who enjoys this level of deep dive analysis, and you want to support the channel while getting a bit closer to the data, I want to invite you to click the Join button below. Our members, known as the Optimizers, get custom sketch badges and priority replies to their comments. I spend a lot of time in the Community tab sharing extra insights that don't always make it into the full videos. It is a way to surround yourself with people who are also trying to break free from the trap and build real wealth. It is a small way to join a tribe that values balance sheets over luxury leases. Now, let's wrap this up with the specific steps you can take today to reclaim your financial power. Breaking free from the 300k suburb trap requires the courage to be different. Step 1 is to pay yourself first. This is the oldest rule in finance for a reason. You must automate your wealth building so the money is gone before you can spend it on the Diderot effect. Max out your 401k, fund your backdoor Roth, and set up an automatic transfer to a brokerage account the second your paycheck hits. If you only have $6,000 left in your checking account after those transfers, you will learn to live on $6,000. You will find that you don't actually need the weekly cleaning service or the premium cable package. Step 2 is to aggressively attack the big three. Look at your housing and your cars with a cold, analytical eye. If you are house poor, moving is not a failure. It is a strategic retreat to a stronger position. Step 3 is to redefine what success looks like for your family. Success is not a zip code. Success is having options. It is the ability to walk away from a toxic job, to travel for 6 months, or to help a loved one in a crisis without checking your bank balance. True wealth is silent. It doesn't scream from the driveway, it hums quietly in the background of a life well lived. You have the income. Now you just need the discipline to keep it. I want to hear from you. I call this the peer review section. Have you felt the pressure of the suburb trap? Have you noticed that as your income went up, your stress went up right along with it? Or maybe you are someone who successfully downsized and found that your happiness actually increased when your fixed costs decreased. Leave a comment below. Your data points help everyone else in this community realize they aren't alone and that there is a way out. I read as many as I can, and it informs the next set of spreadsheets and tools I build for you. Remember, the millionaire next door isn't a myth. They are usually just the person who decided that financial freedom was more important than a new Mercedes. Don't forget to grab the digital tools in the description if you want to start your own audit today. I'm Tom, and this is Tom Talks Money. I'll see you in the next one.